So, multifaceted articles when we put
Morning, honorable members and our guests. I see the honorable minister.
Recording in
If I'm not
progress.
mistaken, he is still in our. We're going to start our meeting. I see that we have also been joined by CBOs from provinces. Then there will be an indication, whoever is leading it, to say which provinces are here that have joined us. Today's meeting, I think the agenda and the notice was circulated to us, and presentations. A presentation from the department was also circulated to us. We will then, after we've done our house rules, we will then, Northwest CTPO, can you please mute your mic? Thank you. We will then start with our meeting. I don't want to waste time because people may be challenged with the network because of load shedding and other things. With us in PE, wind can just mess us up because we are a windy city. Can I then allow Mr. Sakaza to take us through the roll call, and whoever is leading the department will then take us through the roll call of the department. Mr. Sakaza, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all the members. Chair, we've got today the following members. We've got you, Chair, Honorable Dunjwa, Honorable Makubele, Honorable Mdabe, Honorable Zuma, Honorable Beigram, Honorable Kado, Honorable Ligoff, Honorable Denner, Honorable Ngobo. I just got a call from Honorable Volmarans. He's having a problem with his network, but he's trying to join in, Chair. I also have from the support staff, Chair, got myself, Poshia, Debu Homkwena, the researcher, Sibongiseni Ngobo, the content advisor, Tolelwa, the executive secretary. We are also joined, Chair, by Ms. Suen Isaac from the Legal of Parliament. And from PMG, we've got Jen Raul Smith, Chair. Thank you, Chair. That's all from my side for now, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Sakaza. Can we, from the department, who is leading the department, who can take us through? Who is here? I see the TM is here. Welcome, TM. Yeah, the minister. Who is leading the department? Who can then just take us through? And we'll then check. You will check for now, Mr. Sakaza, who are guests, because I would imagine we may have guests, but we must know who are they and where are they coming from. Whoever is leading the department, can you take us through who is here?
We've got the acting DG, Dr. Moemi, who's here, and the minister is also here. Thank you, Chair. Dr. Moemi can lead us.
Thank you very much. With your indulgence, Honorable Chairperson, good morning and good morning to the members of the Portfolio Committee, to the Minister, Deputy Minister, the parliamentary staff, and the staff of the department and our entity. Chair, today, this morning, we are on the platform.
Who is talking? Acting DG, can you see your face, please? If it's possible.
Am I visible now, Chair?
No. If you have got a problem for now, we will excuse you and then you sort that out. We don't see you. Okay, you may continue. Message of this. I don't know what is in the screen. It is not your face.
I also don't know.
You may continue with your
introduction. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I was indicating that this morning on the platform I am joined by employees in the department, senior managers, who will be participating in the meeting of the Portfolio Committee. Minister is here to lead us together with the Deputy Minister. But in the senior managers, I am joined by the CFO, Mr. Beki Maduna. I'm also joined by Ms. Bahumi Matebesi, who is our DDG for corporate services. We are also joined by Mr. Lumko Mtinde. Mr. Mtinde is the senior advisor, special advisor to the minister. We're also joined by Ms. Masha Bonkost. Masha is our Chief Operations Officer. We are also joined on the platform this morning by Ms. Onke Mjo. Onke is the Chief of Staff of Minister Nesi. From my office, there is Ms. Matapelo Matabuche, who is the Parliamentary Liaison Officer. We are also with DDG Sam Morotova. DDG Morotova is the DDG responsible for public employment services. We are also joined by Mr. Savelo Mali, who is the spokesperson of the minister and a media liaison officer in this regard. We're also joined by Mr. Sipon Devele, who's the acting DDG as well in the department. And we are joined by also Mr. Tando Wababa, who is the parliamentary liaison officer for Minister Nesi, as well as Mr. Tembinko Simkalipi. Mr. Mkalipi is the chief director in the department, and also Mr. Welile Gwengu. Mr. Gwengu works in the office of the Director General and provides support to the Director General. Thank you very much, Chairperson. These are the members that are joining this morning from the department.
I would have thought that you'll also take us through which CPOs are here and from which province, because I saw Northwest, if I'm not mistaken, Eastern Cape. But can we just get a fraction, how many provinces are here? I see Western Cape and Northwest. The others, I may miss them. Yeah.
Okay, Chair. I think for that, I'm going to require assistance. have only started visiting provinces now to meet the staff there. Chair, I'm still only 1.5 weeks in office, so bear with me. I will get to know all of them, but I would request DDG Morotova to assist me by introducing them.
Yes, Mr. Morotova.
No,
Your mic has got the problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. The colleagues from the provinces that are with us today, and I'm going through the list, is Date Edward Kambula is from KZN, and then we have Miss Nomfundo Dojek, who is the CDPO of the Eastern Cape. And then we also have Mr. Paswana Tlali, who is the acting CDPO in Limpopo. We also have Mr. Albani, who is the CDPO Northern Cape. Those are the people that I could see on the platform. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and DG.
Thank you very much. Are there any other guests, Mr. Solan, Mr. Sagas?
Yes, Chair, I saw the name of Linda Enzo. I think it's from a newspaper. I'm not sure which one. And I also see Jason Felix. Yeah, they will say themselves, Chair.
Can they please introduce themselves and tell us from which institutions or companies they're coming from? And if they don't want to do that, we're going to take them off the platform. Because we can't be seated with people in the meeting that we don't know who are they and from which company they are coming from.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Yes.
This is Jason Felix from News 24.
News
24, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else? Somebody's hand is up. Smith, MG. Zolan did indicate that you are here. Can you lower your hand, please? Thank you. No, thank you very much, members and our guests. What we keep on highlighting to everybody, because we must not just because it's virtual meetings, people are to join and then keep quiet because we want people to introduce that they are coming from. We don't have a problem with people joining our meetings. We don't have a problem at all, but we are to know who is with us. I see there is somebody called Linda, and so Business Day. I don't know why she has left a message in the chat. I'm sure she has got a problem with whatever she has got a problem with in terms of the audio or the speaker. We will then, our agenda is that we are going to be briefed by the department on I think Mr. Saza, can you float it if it's possible, is the briefing by the department on the petition by Solidarity and Cape Town regulators. You will remember that in fact we were sent a letter. I think let me just give members a breakdown. A letter was forwarded to the office from the office of the Speaker. A memorandum, a petition that was sent to the office of the Speaker by Solidarity and Cape Town organization on the issues of the regulations. And in going through that memorandum, which was a memorandum that was sent in June, it was a memorandum that was beginning to, should I say, I don't want to say instruct the committee in terms of reflecting their dissatisfaction on issues that are raised in the Employment Equity Act in terms of regulations. Now, because we can't just respond to them, it's when a correspondence is from the Office of the Speaker, the committee is to look into that memorandum, in fact, take it to the department for the department to look into it also, but also request the department to come in front of us to then say, here is the memorandum, because it has not yet been, those regulations have not been, there is a process which the department will then take us through, that where is the process now. So that is why we have then requested the department to also come and take us through, should I say, assist us, and then requested the legal of Parliament to come and be part of the meeting, because we are dealing with issues of legality and law. Having said that, I just wanted members to have an understanding, because when there is a petition, that's what we usually do, there's a sitting, so that we then respond back to the minister. I'm sorry, to the Office of the Speaker, this is how we have addressed the issue, because we're expected to do that. I will then, in welcoming everybody, I will then request the department to then take us through. I will switch off my video now. We'll request the department to take us through. And yeah, thank you very much. Before that, I don't know whether the minister does have a, because the practice that, is there any
Yes.
political overview, minister, that would like to take us through on?
Yes.
Sorry
yes,
for that.
Yes, Chairperson, just a
Over to you.
short one. And good morning to you, Chair, and the members of the Portfolio Committee, the Deputy Minister, the DG, and the officials of the department. And my apologies for absence at the last Portfolio Committee meeting, but honorable members, South Africa's membership and participation in the international organizations, it's very crucial to advance the national interest. So I insist it should not be a matter of just affiliation. We ought to be actively participate in such a manner that it's beneficial to the growth and the interest of our country. When I was away at the ILO, Chairperson, the acting DG, Dr. Alex Muwemi, joined you in the meeting of the 8th of November 2023, and some would remember Dr. Muwemi when he was the DG in the Department of Sports and Recreation. He then moved to the Department of Transport, still as a DG, and after that he joined the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. He's now the acting DG in the Employment and Labor to make his own contribution in the fulfillment of the Department of Employment and Labor's mandate. Chairperson, part of the preamble of the Constitution of the Democratic South Africa states that we, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustice of our past and honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land. Respect those who have worked to build and develop our country and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity and the code. And I want to remind those who have forgotten that the United Nations labeled apartheid as a crime against humanity. That's very fundamental from some of the denialists today. So now, when we formulate the laws and or repeal them, we do so ensuring that injustice and imbalances of the past are being addressed. If we do not do that, this fledgling democracy of ours will be empty and totally meaningless. That's what some do when they want to protect the privileges of apartheid. In this portfolio committee, we completed putting together amendments to the Employment Equity Act. And as such, the entire parliament adopted the amendments and sent them to the president to assent. The president did exactly that in April, prompting the subsequent process of developing draft regulations to unfold. What is remarkable in the law of this country is that everyone is given an opportunity to comment and engage. Everyone commented on the Employment Equity Amendment Bill. All comments were scrutinized. There is no way that regressive ones would make it into the final text. But all constructive amendments that still ensure justice do find space in our laws. And that is what happened in the Employment Equity Act number 4 of 2022. Now, those who are for injustice and anti-transformation are still crying even today. In any case, some of them were against this thing as early as in 1998. When we published the draft employment equity regulations on proposed sector numerical employment equity targets, they jumped up and distorted the content and the purpose of the targets. That's the reason that you received a petition from the National Assembly Speaker, which you ought to respond to. It's from this, or from the groupings that ignored the word draft in big capital letters and underlined that word, which on its own was an invitation for their views and comments. But I'm glad to see that some of them did submit their comments. Having received all the comments, the department, together with the Commission for Employment Equity, is fine-tuning the revised draft employment equity regulations on the proposed sector numerical employment equity targets. And once the process is completed on these revised draft employment equity regulations, these will be once again be published for further comments. But the comments and proposals that are consistent with the Constitution instruct us to do it instructs us to do what we have to do, and will be carried through those comments to the final employment equity regulations on sector numerical employment equity targets. So, Chairperson, the department has committed to monitor and report on the targets set by the Presidential Job Summit agreements. Also, in its annual performance plan, the department's plans are spelled out for developing employment policy. The APP will be presented by the acting DG, and his team will provide details. And it involves what one can refer to as cutting the cloth according to size, or the size of the jacket. If the cloth can only make a large size, not triple extra large, it means it should be cut accordingly. But also, to ensure that irregular expenditure is eliminated, and importantly, that key priorities are contained in the performance agreement signed with the presidents are indeed implemented. These have to be featured in the annual performance plans. Chairperson, the acting DG and his team will get into the details. I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for that insight. We will then hand over to the department acting DG who's going to make a presentation or reflect on your comments in terms of the petition.
Thank you very much.
On the petition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. On the petition, we would seek to Mr. Mkalipi to take the committee through on what has been our response to this. Minister has covered the succinct political overview around this matter, but Mr. Mkalipi will then give the details of what is contained in it and what our key response to it is. And when it comes to the APP, I would then invite the COO, Ms. Masha Bronkhorst, to take through the committee through the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Over to you, Mr. Mkalipi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable members, Minister, Deputy Minister, the DG, and colleagues. The first slide, please, As the minister has indicated, the Employment Equity Bill was passed by Parliament, both houses, on the 7th of May in 2022. And the Act number 4, was asserted, as the minister has indicated, into law by the President on the 6th of April and published in the Government Gazette on the 14th of April. And the key objective, just to give members a background of where this is coming from, of the amendment, to reduce any regulatory burden on small business, those employing less than 50, and so that they are not regarded as designated employers. And empower the minister to regulate sector-specific targets in order to ensure the equitable representation of suitably qualified employees, people from designated grouping. As members would know, this is influenced by the fact that transformation has not moved since 1998. And the last part will be to promulgate Section 53 of the Employment Equity Act, which allow the issuance of certificate of compliance as a prerequisite to state contract. Section 53, as it sits in the law, has not been promulgated. Therefore, we intend to move on with the promulgation. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of the preparation for this commencement of the Act, consultation took place with all relevant sectors of the economy in setting the EE targets, starting from June 2019 to February 2023. Draft regulations on proposed targets were set and published on the 12th of May for public comment for 30 days. Written public comment, as the minister has indicated, were received from many stakeholders who have been considered by the Commission, and they have been considered by the Commission for Employment Equity. Where applicable, the CE incorporated the comments into the revised draft E regulation on proposed sector E target, which should be republished for further public comment to extend the consultation process and enhance the content of the final regulation on the EE sector. Next slide, please. Now, subsequent to this draft regulation, members, as the chair has indicated, you received the petition from Solidarity and Cape Forum. Now, our view on the petition is this, as the minister has indicated also, the petition lacks legal basis and is premature because currently there are no 2023 regulation. In their petition, they cite 2023 regulation. There are no such regulation, they don't exist. As the minister has indicated, we've got draft regulation. Draft regulation are not regulations. As I've said, in fact, no regulation can be published for implementation before the commencement date of any primary act or amended act. Because the president has not yet promulgated the act, we can't publish regulation. We can prepare for the final publication on the meantime, and that's what we've done, and that's where the draft comes in. Now, in their petition, they also reference the Solidarity case where Solidarity took us to the Labour Court, challenging the constitutionality of certain section of the Act. Since 2022, Solidarity has withdrawn their Labour case, their Labour Court case, because as a result of a settlement agreement that we reached with them, remember, Solidarity went to the ILO also on the same issues on employment equity and all of these issues. And the ILO referred it back to the company, to the country, for the country to see whether can we reach a settlement. We reached a settlement with Solidarity. As part of that settlement, we agreed that we'll make it a court order. We'll approach the court to make it a court order. And then we'll agree to Solidarity that the settlement that is agreed, which doesn't change anything, it says exactly what the law says, will be incorporated in the regulation, and that we're still committed to that. The content, as I've said, the content of the settlement will be incorporated, published in the regulation, also for further public comments. In light then of all of these expectation, members, we think the petition by Solidarity and Cape Forum has been overtaken by the latest development, and it should be seen as a total disregard and misuse of parliamentary process. As we said, one, there are no 2023 regulation. Two, the Solidarity case have been withdrawn by Solidarity because as a result of the settlement agreement. Three, the regulation will be republished before they are made final for further comment. And as I've said, four, we believe this is just a waste of and a misuse of parliamentary processes. Thank you, Chair. That's our presentation, our view on the petition.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mkhaliphi. Are there any additions? DG?
I believe Mr. Mkhaliphi has covered the key grounds we are raising this matter, but our key contention is that those who propound on this matter have an opportunity to actually contribute to the process and to enrich the process so that ultimately when Minister does consider and finalize the process, he has taken their views into consideration. Only then can the parliamentary process ensue, and only then we believe that it will be opportune for Parliament to engage with the process. In no way do we seek to curtail what Parliament says, but we are also alive to the fact that in their prayers, they are already asking Parliament to actually curtail what another branch of the state has got to do its work. And in this regard, I think the doctrine of the separation of powers is important to note. We do not fear oversight, but we believe that the executive must be given room and space to promulgate policies, and thereafter Parliament can then play its oversight role. And correctly, Mr. Mkhaliphi is right, this is premature. And that will be the only addition we make in that regard, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, members. There it is. Any comments?
Michael Bagram.
Louise Denner, please, Chair.
Michael Carter.
Honorable Bagram, Honorable Kado, Honorable Dana.
May I go ahead, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and thank you for that presentation from the department, as thin as it might be. I too have read the petition, and I've too also read the settlement agreement entered into between the Ministry and Solidarity. And quite clearly what's happened in terms of the settlement agreement, the Solidarity's claims in the court have been agreed to by the department. And all I'm looking for is the Minister to confirm that the contents of that settlement agreement will be contained in the new draft regulations. In other words, the current draft regulations will be withdrawn, and that a new set of draft regulations will be issued for comment, and also that new set will contain the contents of the settlement agreement between Solidarity and the Department of Employment and Labour. Thank you for that. I have nothing further to add.
Kado.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to know when the new regulations are going to be gazetted, and then building on from Honourable Bagram's point, I mean, I think that settlement agreement with Solidarity that was facilitated by the CCMA under the supervision of the ILO is absolutely key. And what interested me about that settlement is that there are 3 provisions up front. They state essentially that affirmative action must be a coherent packet of measures, but that they must be temporary in nature in line with the Constitution. Secondly, the settlement agreement states that affirmative action shall be applied in a nuanced way. And thirdly, it says that no absolute barrier may be placed upon employment practices. Now, none of those provisions was reflected in the draft regulations that were published in May. I want to know whether those 3 things are going to be taken into account and reflected when the regulations are published again, because let's face it, the so-called numerical targets are an absolute misnomer. They are in effect quotas, particular demographic compositions that a designated employer must achieve on pain of severe penalties, including the inability to do business with the state, the cancellation of existing state contracts, compelling orders, fines, etc., etc. And that power is plainly unconstitutional. So in sum, I want to know if those particular provisions of the settlement agreement are going to be reflected in the regulations when they are gazetted again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My questions have largely been covered by the 2 colleagues. I just want to know if there is any indication of when the Employment Equity Amendment Act will be signed into law. If we can maybe just get a ballpark date from the department. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Is the Minister around?
Can I come in, Chair?
Yes,
Honourable
yeah.
Kalipi.
Can I request you, Madam there?
Can we allow Honourable Kalipi to respond? Then, yeah.
Chair and Ministers, as our presentation indicates, first, the settlement agreement with Solidarity happened well after the draft public regulation were published. Therefore, whatever is in the settlement agreement could not be in the draft regulation that were published, because that settlement happened after. Secondly, we entered into a settlement agreement with Solidarity in good faith. We understand the issues, and that part of that settlement agreement says we will incorporate, make sure that the regulation explains these issues. Therefore, it doesn't say that a draft regulation, obviously, we've already said that the regulation will be republished again for further public comment they will include all the issues in the law and the issues that we've agreed in terms of the settlement agreement. On the issue of when will the law be promulgated, that's a decision for the president. The president has accepted the law. As we are saying, we are working now on the issue. We will go back when we are ready, when we've drafted all the regulations and we know everything is in order. Go back to the president and ask the president that he promulgate on a given date. And that we have not done yet. But we can't say it's going to be done on this date, even after we've asked the president. The president has not promulgated because we have not asked them, because we have not finalized our own processes in terms of these issues. Therefore, it's difficult for members, for us now to say it will be on this date because of those two reasons. Well, first, we have not finalized our processes. Secondly, even if we finalize our processes, the signing of the date is a president prerogative when it's done. Therefore, we can't say the president will sign on this date. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Minister?
Yes. Do you see me? Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chair. Chairperson, I've indicated that, and I want to repeat. Having received all the comments, the department, together with the Employment Equity Commission, is fine-tuning the revised draft employment equity regulations and post-employment equity targets. Once that process is completed, those revised and underlined revised draft employment regulations will once again be published for further comment. There's nothing talking about withdrawal of what we've published. We're talking about revision. So withdrawal is in somebody's mind. We're not going to withdraw anything. And we are saying, if the comments and proposals that are consistent with what the Constitution instructs us to do, those will be carried with what the Constitution says. They will be carried in the revised regulations. There's no withdrawal here. I want to leave it there, Chair. So it's still a process. And I want to also emphasize, we have agreed, and it's a court order, that what is in the settlement and declared by a court of law, and I think Mr. Mkalipe has said that, we said we're going to put it as part of the regulations, as an addendum. That's what we said. Even that settlement, nothing else. Thank you.
No, thank you, Minister and Mr. Mkalipe. Thank you for clearing that to us, because the key thing here is that there is still a draft, and it will not be correct for us to want to be involved in a process of the department, which as time will permit, they will come back to us and put this. So we can't then by default have to discuss regulations that are not even in front of us. We don't know what is being said by everybody around the country. And therefore we can't be involved in that process, which is a an organization that has brought in a petition. Everybody will then be allowed to reflect. And I would then say, fine, we will write back to the speaker in terms of the response from the department, in terms of the processes, and that it is still a draft. And we all know that we will allow the department to finish its process and then come back. If there is a need to table the regulations in front of the committee, that will then be allowed. We will interact with that and be advised on what we are to do as Parliament. But for now, let's allow the department to finish its processes and thereof engage on all the questions that we have engaged on in terms of what then solidarity is putting across. I think we will, I hope the Secretariat is here. They have picked up, they have put down what then we will then be sending to the office, reporting back to the office of the Speaker. Having said that, we will then now go to the second item of our agenda, which is the presentation by the department on the impact of what was said by Treasury, the impact of that to our APP. Thank you. Acting DG, I don't know who's then going to be doing going through your presentation.
Yes, Honorable Chair, the Chief Operations Officer of our department, Ms. Masha Bronkhorst, will take us through the presentation, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting DG. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like to request from you whether it will be acceptable if I focus only on the amendments in the APP, or would you want me to go through all the slides?
I think the amendments of the APP will be fine, not unless members have got some other things to ask from the slide.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to give background as to why we had to table an amended APP, because we've not done it since I've been here. I can't recall that we've done an amended APP. What happened is that our APP was tabled in January, as you know, in March. But the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation did an alignment of APPs of all government departments to a number of priorities stated in the State of the Nation address, as well as they did an alignment to the Minister's Performance Agreements that was signed with the President. There were also subsequent consultations between the President and the Deputy President with ministers, and further priorities were identified, and it was on the basis of that we were requested to add some indicators in our APP. Some of these were already contained in our annual performance plans of the branches, so we simply had to lift them to form part of the APP, and then one or two are new indicators that we have had to include. So having said that, Chair, then if I have to focus on only the amendments that we have made, The first slide that I would like us to look at would be slide 17. On slide 17, and the changes I've indicated in red on these slides so that it's easily identifiable. The first one is the percentage of the vacant funded posts maintained. This is 9.9% or less per quarter. Members will recall that we decreased it in the original APP. And with the budget cuts and now the moratorium that's been placed on the filling of vacancies, we had to change this number because it would not be possible for us to achieve what we had set out in the original APP. Also, the issue of the SMS positions occupied by women, 46%. It's also was also decreased a little bit from 48%. For the same reasons, that we cannot at the moment fill vacancies, and therefore this will be a challenge to achieve. The next changes that we have, which we included, or change we had to make, and this is a new indicator we had to include, is on slide 19. Excuse me. On slide 19, at the bottom there, the honourable members are aware of the reconfiguration of the department as well as the process of unbundling the UIF and the compensation fund. And this was in different operational plans, and we were requested to lift it to the annual performance plan. So this is 9.1, the key indicator under administration, 9.1, the reconfiguration of the department, including the unbundling of the UIF and the compensation fund, should be finalised. The progress report on the unbundling of the UIF and the CF should be finalised by the 31st of October 2023. The process of the reconfiguration of the department, this has been started, and originally our service provider, or we're being assisted by GTAC from National Treasury, had a date of September 2024 to finalise the process. However, we've requested them to make sure that we can finalise this process by the end of the 5th administration and not later than April 2024. And then the PricewaterhouseCoopers work that is being done by the UIF and CF, they have submitted their reports and their proposals, and this is in the process of being implemented. Our next amendments were on slide 22. And this is in the area of public employment services. Quite a number of amendments that we had to do here. The first one is the number of jobs fairs that are conducted per year, had to be 1 per province. Now, the jobs fairs originally were, as I said, also in the operational plan, but when the president visited one of the jobs fairs, realized the importance of the work that is being done, as well as the large numbers of young people which are being assisted, for example, in terms of, the National Pathway Management Project and the interns, as well as then the jobs fairs, particularly where unemployed youth are matched to employers offering job opportunities. Additional funding was provided so that we could run out with jobs fairs in each and every province. The money that was additionally provided was a total of 18 million rands that came from National Treasury. So we have got the jobs fairs now per province, where the number would have been 1 for the year. Then the National Labour Migration Policy and the Employment Services Amendment Bill has to be finalised and approved by the Minister for submission to Cabinet by the end of the year. Again, this was in the operational plan of the branch, and it was requested to be lifted because this, together, you remember that the National Labour Migration Policy was together with the National Employment Policy, it formed part of one. But after the discussions between the President and the DPME, they had to be separated. And we had to therefore include the National Labour Migration Policy. We're waiting for the certificate from the state law advisors, and the final documents we have submitted on the 13th of November. We're waiting to hear what the outcome thereof is. The next amendment we had to do is on slide 23. This is in the space of labor policy and industrial relations. Firstly, it's the sector EE targets that have to be developed and consulted. Draft 5-year sector EE targets have to be developed and republished for comment. I think we've already heard with the introductory discussions that we had. This must be finalized by the 31st of March. And then on slide 24, the final one that we had to amend on slide 24 is the framework agreement that has to be finalized and a working group established on the social compact. So the final framework on the social compact has to be developed, tabled and adopted at NEDLAC by the 31st of March 2024. Chairperson, those are the small amendments that we had to effect on our annual performance plan. And if you will allow, the CFO could take us through the financial implications of the budget cuts, etc., on the department. Thank you, Chair.
Over to you, CFO.
Thanks, Chair, honorable members. In our engagement with National Treasury, we've been asked to implement some reductions as well in our voted amounts, in our voted funds. For the current financial year, which is next slide, current financial year, which is in the current financial year, which is 23-24, but also in the outer years as well. The outer years have not been confirmed. We initially did the outer years at 3%, but we are currently engaged with Treasury on what the position would be if we implement 6% and 8% respectively. What we can safely talk about is the current year, which is 3%. That 3% in our budget amounted to 79.4 million. The 79.4 million is distributed as follows. In administration, the reduction was 24.4 million. In inspection and enforcement services, it was 15 million. Public employment services, it was 23 million. Labor policy and industrial relations, it is 17 million. So from our allocation of just about 4 billion, 4.092 billion, when we deduct the 79.4, the revised or adjusted budget comes to 4.12 billion. Next slide. The same amount allocated in terms of economic classification on current payments is 19.4 million. Transfers and subsidies is 40 million reduction. Capital payments is 20 million, which also equals to 79.4 million cut. Next slide. Zooming deeper into where these allocations, these reductions have been, we have taken some from 3 million from advertising. Audit costs, these are actually savings that we realize by efficiently running our audit process with the AG. So although it's not a reduction per se, it's actually a savings that from our budgeted amount, we are realizing due to efficiencies that we put on our audit process. Computer services, 10 million cut. Agency support, 3 million. Operating leases, 2 million. On machinery and equipment, 15 million. Other machinery, 5 million. Next slide.
On compensation fund. Compensation fund is the money that we pay to the injured public servants, excluding the service departments. We think that the claims that are coming through will not be able to take the whole allocation of 18.5 million. So we are indicating that on that saving, we can, on the projected saving, we can reduce the budget by 3 million from that transfer. On GTEC, which is the project that is in the department, is in Public Employment Services, Pathway Management. We also reduced the 20 million due to the challenges that they are experiencing in spending that amount. Next slide. CCMA, we have also indicated that from their budget, they should also put into the kit 10 million from their budget, and also NETLEC 7 million. Those are the items that have been affected in the current financial year by the cuts. Over and above that, not related to the budget cuts, as the COO has indicated in terms of the moratorium on filling on vacancies, not only for us, the implication has been that we were asked to fund the wage agreement, government wage agreement within our budget. The way it was effected is that it wiped up all the funding for the vacant post, which are now affected by that freeze, because the money that was funding the positions then funded the increase in the implementation of the wage agreement. I think that's the end of the slide from the CFO. I will end there. The financial implications on the budget cuts. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Before you hand over, on the last slide on page 7, the page 7, I want you to repeat. Can you repeat page 7?
Page 7, those were the vacancies that we had by June this financial year. There were funded vacancies because we thought that in our compensation of employees, we do have funding for it. But when this wage agreement was implemented, for the department, I think it meant, based on the calculations that Treasury made, the wage agreement was 80 million, which was supposed to be then added into our budget. However, Fiscus did not have that amount to add to government. So departments were asked to fund the wage agreement, public service wage agreement within their budgets, which then means that when we funded the wage agreement, the increase that the public servants in the Department of Employment and Labor, it took away the funding for the positions that were vacant, which then means that the vacant positions then became unfunded. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is that the end of the presentation?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any more additions from the acting DG, Marsha?
We are okay, Chair, save for the fact that these are matters beyond our control now. we have been given targets on what we need to cut. And since it has now been issued as a treasury instruction, it leaves little room. The only room for us is to see where we need to cut. And correctly, as Minister points out, we can only cut the size of the suit according to the available cloth. And I think this is where we are in this exercise. None of the areas that we are cutting following the earlier cuts are making our job any easier compared to what is expected to be delivered. But nevertheless, we've got to collectively as government look at the challenge that is on the table. And I think what is being presented before the committee as revised is actually our effort at contributing to the bigger picture. And to that extent, it does, however, as you can see from the earlier presentation made by Masha, that it does impact on our ability to deliver what we earlier had committed ourselves to deliver with the reduced budget that has now been surrendered back. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Acting DG, CFO and COO for the presentation. I see a hand, Honorable Baker.
Thank you. If I may go ahead, Madam Chair, or do you want to take other names?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that report. It's a bleak report. It's actually a bit depressing, and I understand that the department's got its hands tied behind its back because of the wage increase that the civil service were given. A couple of things. First of all, 10 million rand now off the CCMA, who every year have had a budget cut, and effectively they're the only entity within the department that's actually working. And I think the public are starting to suffer from the budget cuts at the CCMA. We see it every day. And as you know, Madam Chair, the CCMA is a vital organization for the public. It's also going to be very vital as we're going into a period now where the mines are all going through retrenchments and disputes and all sort of the things like that. And the CCMA have come in and settled. Even the minister referred to the solidarity agreement that was sorted out by the CCMA. It's a vital institution, and for the department to choose to take 10 million rand off the CCMA, I think is folly and a bit silly. They could have taken money off productivity that does very little, or even SEE, which we're going to hear from now. Excuse me. I'm begging and pleading that the minister rethinks taking the 10 million rand off the CCMA. But I understand they have to take it somewhere, which then leads me to the second point, this wage agreement. You will recall at the time, the Minister of Finance strongly urged government not to agree to that increase for the public service. The reason being, he said he didn't have the money, they didn't have the sustainability, and this increase is not where it ends, because now the next increase in the next financial year has to be a percentage on what has been increased already for this financial year. And the Minister of Finance did plead with the country that we cannot afford that. And yet it looks like the government has caved into the demand for this increase, and now it's affecting every single department. Now we're sucking the hind tit, which is a real bad situation for service delivery in South Africa. The Department of Employment and Labour is supposed to give us service delivery. We're not getting it. And the only entity that gives it is the CCMA. So I have a problem. And that leads us to the vacancies that can't be filled. You will recall, Madam Chair, that as a entity, the vacancies that appeared in all the different entities within the Department of Employment and Labour became a keynote of our observations as a committee of the Employment and Labour Portfolio Committee, where we urged the department to fill the vacancies. Of course, they can't now because they don't have the money. And in fact, never mind filling vacancies, they're probably going to have to create more vacancies because they don't have money to pay people because of this wage agreement. So again, I must tell you that the public service wage agreement is going to create havoc, not just in our department, but probably all the other portfolio committees are having a similar debate that we're having. So thank you, Madam Chair. Just thought I'd add in my tuppence worth.
Thank you, Honorable Bikram. What I in page 2, my concern in page 2 in terms of the cuts in page 2. I don't know, Minister and the acting DG, if we can go there, Matapel, on page 2, the cut on IEC. I'm a bit concerned with that amount of money. When we see that we really do need those inspectors, what is really happening in the country, and 15 million cut, it then means there are going to be no no inspectors that are going to be employed. Can I have the presentation on page which was presented in terms of the cuts, the slide 2? Is it possible? Yes. My concern is there. Is there anything? Because if you cut 15 million, it's only that maybe that exercise can be done to say 15 million will then be equivalent to what? How many posts we will then be losing in that space in terms of inspection and enforcement services. And in terms of administration, that 24 million is where? What will then be affected in terms of the administration on 24 million? It's only figures. I hope I'm understood my concern. We are given figures. It would have been, for me, Minister and acting DG, it would have been much better. Maybe it's too cumbersome work to do, so that we have an understanding of the impact of those cuts. Because if you are just given 24, you don't know. You must, and the danger of that is that down the line, you had boom, the 24 million this is how it has impacted administration. The 15 million, this is how it has. I must not assume, and I need to be told, Minister, if that assumption is wrong, that the 15 million in inspection and enforcement is going to affect the employment of those inspectors, which we know the country is under serious challenge in terms of what is happening around. So maybe at an appropriate time, these areas that we have, in particular the administration and the inspection and enforcement services, The reason that I wanted you to repeat page 7 in terms of what has affected the department around the wage agreement. It then means, if I am correct, it then means there won't be any people that are employed in the Department of Employment and Labor between now and the next round of wage agreement. And in moving forward, what then does that mean? In moving forward, Honorable Minister, what then does that mean? Because I don't want us to be involved. We can't be involved. It's not in our terrain. That it's public service and administration that deals with that. But what does that mean in moving forward in the next future in terms of vacant post in the employment and labor department? Those will be my comments and concerns. I hope they are not confusing, but those are the concerns that I'm having. Thank you. I don't know who is going to respond on our comments and issues that have been raised by myself and Honorable Petra. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think the starting point should be that as I've indicated, Chair, we do not have much room. And I think we've got to also be realistic to the commitments we have and what we had set ourselves to do, and to then make the decisions of what is to be done within the confines of what we have. As the process work, Chair would be quite au fait with the fundamentals that the ministry has to set priorities together with what comes out of government-wide, the cabinet and the MTSF, and that the key priorities that have been set for the 6th administration are the ones that has to be prioritized of immediate when we look at what to sacrifice and what to compromise. And the methodology there too is the ability that the financial viability of the institution as a whole, as well as its functional ability, must not be compromised to the extent that services would indeed collapse. So it's an art and a science of managing this specific tightrope of how far can you go and on what key issues. So it isn't easy. Anybody could have their own opinions about what they perceive as the most important service that we ought to be rendering to citizens. But we move from a premise that says all the services we are rendering are important, hence they are legislated, and hence the Parliament of the Republic has given us the responsibility via this legislation to be able to roll out these services. So where we sit, we take each and every service as important as it's required, because the law is binding on what we are required to do. And we do not have a choice of picking and choosing which legislation to implement and which one not to. So where we are sitting, none of the things from what we cut do we deem them as silly or nonsensical or for a lack of appetite to do the right thing. I think we are faced up with a real issue. Unfortunately, we are the ones now in charge who are supposed to make the difficult decisions about what needs to be taken forward and what not to. And I think that we have presented this, the revised APP, to the committee we are willing to be guided and to listen to what is being posited by the honorable members. And I think Minister is also here. When we are done, back at the department, we will relook and see the impact of what is being suggested and the impact of us not doing what we have been requested to do. And I think ultimately the minister will make a decision in as far as that is concerned. But again, the principle has been that everybody has got to sacrifice to the extent that they are able to. And as a bottom line, first, before we even did the considerations about viability test, we had to look at a principal position that says this is the baseline on which everybody must sacrifice a percentage. And from there, we build up on the basis of the priorities of the sixth administration and to look at what then, after this cuts, can we cross-subsidize, where do we return money back, and where do we actually take a bit more. And I think that, like I'm saying, there are no specific rules around where to cut. So but it is scientific in the sense that we seek to provide clear economic viability tests to ensure that we remain afloat as a department and that our services do not totally collapse for the public. But on the other hand, it's also an art, because you also have got to do a balancing act of making difficult choices of where you actually get to cut. So I think that is the context within which we are engaging with this matter. But like I said, we have had the considerations that have been made and the inputs that have been made to this process. We would ultimately consider them and also reflect with our own minister on what is being said. On the issues, Chair, that you raised, I can assure you that the figures were not just thumbsucked about how much to cut. So what you are asking, I can assure you, is not as difficult as you think it is. In effect, there is a load of work behind how we arrived at the figures. And so if you want to know what the total impact would be, I think, yes, at a high level, we'll be able to indicate to you in this space the translation means that this is how much positions we cannot fill. I think given the last slide you were contending with, that you requested the CFO to take you through once more, was already a good indicator of where we had vacancies that we deemed funded. And we can also do an exception report that shows you, therefore, the impact has been the following on those vacancies and what we then cannot fill. And equally, in the same manner, in goods and services, we can also show you the reduction and what in real terms that may mean. But however, I should assure you that let's take, for instance, what you are concerned about the most, being the issue of the availability of inspectors right across. I don't think our solution in the main rests more with bigger increases of the numbers of inspectors. I think it has to do more with us being much more efficient and introducing necessary monitoring technologies that will become a multiplier effect to ensure that the numbers we have and that we were given more smarter. We have begun engagements now with law enforcement agencies, including the State Security Agency, that we are quite targeted and we do intelligence-led inspections, because if we are trying to be all over the show with the numbers we have, even if we double them, just considering the number of registered companies in South Africa and considering the spread and the nature of diversity of industries, with South Africa being such a most developed economy and diversified economy on the African continent, it will make it impossible for us to reach the footprint of all of the length and spread of the companies across the Republic. But however, if we are much more targeted and we use our limited resources much more efficiently, we are now turning towards technology. We are now turning towards things like drone monitoring, so particularly for construction sites and things like that. And even artificial intelligence programs are emerging, and they are becoming stronger, and they're even becoming cheaper. And to that extent, we would seek to diversify and modernize our inspectorate. We have internally been having discussions, including with the Inspector General, around this matter, and that we begin to formalize the inspectorate and actually do much more to professionalize it as well as to modernize it from an ICT point of view. We think that the equipment and the technology, and if we can also reduce their burden on administration, and that the smart gadgets they have and they are to be issued with, help them with reportage and all of those type of things, it will help a great deal, because it will mean it will free them for the 3 days they spend in office. It will free them to be on site much more often, and therefore their reach will be much even more greater than simply increasing individuals. So I think in all of these things, we've got to look at this, and the crisis is a necessary one. However, we should never let a good crisis go to waste. We must capitalize on it and ensure that at least we come out at the end of the crisis even more better, more resilient, and more able and agile to achieve what we still want with the limited resources we have. So I think Chair does that, but I'll ask the CFO to package the information for you so we can share it with you how we have arrived at the numbers. So we've got a few working papers, but we'll do a summary for what you want to see in terms of the impact on future employment within the department. I can ask the CFO to also come in, Chair, and add on where I could have not or missed what I needed to address with what you have raised. Thank you.
Chair, I just wanted to address the issue of CCMA, the cut on CCMA. I think if you go to the last slide, you will note that CCMA's allocation is 1.015 billion. Not the last, one before this one, sorry. One before, okay. The allocation for CCMA is 1.015 billion. And the allocation for the department is 4 billion. So it stands to reason that CCMA received the biggest transfer or share of our budget. Surely if there is a budget cut, and the budget cut excluded the compensation of employees, because that one was dealt separately and is allocated separately, and the rules for it are different. So we were left with no other choice also but also to look at CCMA because of that fact. Apart from when you look at the line items, the biggest line item is compensation of employees. The second one is transfers to CCMA. So we couldn't just overlook CCMA when we undertook this exercise. That's what I just wanted to add, Chair, on CCMA, to say we have to look on all the line items. Unfortunately, they received the biggest slice of our allocation of the department. Thanks.
No, Minister, is there anything, because I don't see any hands, is there anything that you would like to say? If you're still in the meeting. Honorable Minister? Usakhona? What has happened? Okay. No, honorable, the honorable members, that is the picture. And I would like to say that the department and its and its leaders, both the executive authority and the accounting officer, must understand that, yes, when we see the cuts, obviously we will panic. And the reason that we panic, if I can just put it that way, simple, is because our day to day we're on the ground. We see what is happening in terms of, if I can make an example, people waiting, the waiting period of the people, the queues on the, obviously you can't avoid a queue. I always have a problem, maybe when people are complete, queues are everywhere. They're in hospitals, they're in the banks, they are everywhere. And on a lighter note, I always, when I am seated, when I'm waiting in the bank for more than 2 hours at times, and nobody complains, even in media, communities will never complain that I've been waiting in the bank I've been in the queue for this amount of time. And you are seated there, there's only one person or two people working, and you are seated there, you are waiting more than 20, waiting for those tellers to assist you. And I always said, the power of money, because nobody complains about the services that we received in the banks, but we will complain about the services that are in hospitals, that is in Department of Labor, maybe because those areas are emotive by their nature. So you will have to understand that it's our concern. Yes, you will be dealing with the issues of the technologies in terms of inspectors, but we received calls. While you are doing that, we receive calls, we receive emails of people that are not paid their monies on time, that the UIF, blah, 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 that whole thing. So you must understand our concern and our panic. We will have to panic. I will then yeah, I do think that when we'll be preparing for again our debates as individual members and political parties, and this revised APP is really going to create a serious problem, not only for us, but for the country, but not only for the country, for the workers at large. But thank you very much. We will await, honorable members, for our date for our budget vote debate, which we have not yet received. And I think our meeting stands adjourned until we meet again. Thank you very much. It seems as if I hope I'm not the only one in this meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson Mackenzie.
you.